and welcome to the Path 11 podcast. Before we get into the show today, I just wanted to remind you guys that the Path Evolution is for sale on our website, thepathseries.com. We now have pre-orders, and the film is scheduled to be released hopefully in early June. So head on over, you can check out the trailer and reserve your copy today. We're pretty excited about this show. We are going to be talking about something that I know Mike and I have never heard of until we met these two individuals. But today's show is on the focused life force energy wave. Back in 2008, two men met through a mutual friend. They were both working on accessing and utilizing high consciousness fields. Jeffrey Stegman was creating high consciousness fields and cultures in business, and Clayten Stedmann, as a coach in business, as a spiritual path, was creating high consciousness fields for healing the mind, body, and spirit. They came together with an inventor who had devoted his life to creating free energy for humanity. Although he did not create a free energy device, he had discovered a way to redirect and focus large amounts of life force energy onto an object. So this show is pretty interesting. We're going to learn about what the focused life force energy wave is, how you guys can actually purchase this through their subscription and increase the energy levels of your home. So we would like to welcome Clayten and Jeff to our show today.
Thank you. We're glad to be here with you.
Yeah, so where to start? You guys have this Focused Life Force Innovations Corporation here that you guys have, and I mean, the information behind it and the history of how this came to be is pretty interesting, but I'd like you guys to let our listeners know how you guys came together and what it is that you guys are doing.
Well, great. This is Jeff. I'll start off. Well, I've been running manufacturing businesses in the Midwest and United States for, like 30 years now. And I've always had coaches and people to help me along the way. And Clayten was a coach of mine for a good many years. And we really were working on consciousness. And he has a technology where he can measure the level of consciousness in various areas of your life. So he and I did that work together, and it was really beneficial for my business and for my just personal evolution. And along the way, he told me about an inventor that he discovered up near where he lives in Canada, BC, Canada. And so I went up to see the inventor, and we were really fascinated by this technology. So we started to combine that technology that we found, which is really related or similar to the work of Nikola Tesla. It used high-speed alternating current and stacks of different materials and plates, and these inventors were focusing available energy sort of pulled from the environment using these high-speed alternating fields, and they were trying to generate electricity. So when we discovered this technology, we were able to use Clayten's ability to measure consciousness to really start to see the effects of it and the possibility of what it could do. And Clayten, you were there in the very beginning with the inventors. What was the technology like when you first found it?
Yeah, it was very interesting. It was primarily, the technology was being used to charge up a physical object like a marble plate or a crystal, and people would hold the crystal or the plate, and it would make them feel good. And in some cases, it worked for arthritis patients where the pain would go away when they held the object that was charged up with the machine over that part of their body that had arthritis. The pain would just go away. So it was very interesting, and I spent a lot of time kind of experimenting with the last of the three inventors who was still working on the project, and we tinkered with it and found ways to enhance the power and enhance its capabilities. And then Jeff and I picked it up from there, and we spent most of 2012. Well, I came across the technology in 2007. Jeff and I visited in about 2009 with the inventor, and then we tinkered with it for years, and by the time we got to 2012, we had a pretty good understanding of how to use it, and we got to the point where in the fall of 2012, we were meeting an hour every day before work and putting different locations on the world, different locations of the world on the Focus Life Force Energy Machine to support the 2012 event and the effort that humanity was making to raise its consciousness. And then after that, we made a discovery that allowed us to not have to monitor the technology so quickly and check if the programs were permissible to run every day. And then once we made that discovery, we had a sense of being able to commercialize it so that we could distribute it to the world more.
Now, when you say you put these in different locations in the world, can you explain that a little bit more in depth? I mean, how exactly was that placed? Did you guys have to get permission? And if you can explain that a little bit more, that would be great.
Yeah, I can hit that one, Clayton.
Sure.
We had this aha moment where we realized that the technology could be focused on another part of the Earth without having a physical object there. So what we realized is that in the machine, so it's literally a machine, and it has this focused area where all this energy is concentrated. And then we put in pieces of paper, or programs as we call them, and the action occurs, according to those instructions. And when we realized that when we put an address, like a legal address, which has a consciousness of its own in that it exists in the post office, in the courthouse, and various places, that we could entangle or associate our machine with that address anywhere in the world. And coordinates also work. Since coordinates are a repeatable truth, they always go to the same place, we could put coordinates, and that's what we did. So we picked places around the world using coordinates, Google Earth, and then now with Focus Life Force Energy, it's legal addresses most of the time.
Now, did you study what the effects were of, sending these vibrations to these places that you were testing out? And was there anything that was measurable?
Yes, Clayton has quite an experience as a student of Dr. David Hawkins in developing a means of testing. Do you want to tell us about that, Clayton?
Sure. So there was many ways we were trying to verify the effect of the influence that we were sending. So one was that we measured the area on the Hawkins map of consciousness. We measured its level of consciousness before and after. And in some cases, we were able to talk to people who lived in an area or lived in a house that we had focused the energy on. And we got direct feedback from them as to how it affected them personally, how it affected their children, their pets, how it affected their grocery bill, actually, because people were finding that, friends would come over and it felt so good in the house they didn't want to leave. So did have a few kind of semi-complaints about that, but so there's many ways. We try to always get kind of 3 levels of verification. But when we were working on the 2012 project, we were finding the low spots in a geographic area. These are places of, maybe high geopathic stress zones or things like that, and we would raise a level of consciousness of those spots. We call them critical factor areas, and then the whole region would go up. And so it's just like a leak in a bucket. If you plug the leak, then the water level rises pretty quickly.
Now, for some people who, before we kind of move on, I'd like you to describe to people who may be hearing about Hawkins' map of consciousness for the first time about how you are actually able to measure different levels of consciousness. Now, I've always heard that fear is the lowest vibration and love is the highest vibration, but can you give us a brief introduction to that?
Maybe I'll jump on this one, Jeff, because I use this all the time. The Hawkins map of consciousness is a scale of consciousness that goes from 1 to infinity. The human realm is 1 to 1,000. each level of consciousness has a number of has an amount of microwatts of energy associated with it. I think I've said that right, but each level of consciousness has a vibration, and each vibration has an amount of electricity associated with it. The scale is logarithmic, so 100 is 10 times more powerful than 91. There's emotions associated with each level of consciousness, starting 20 at shame. Fear is about 100 on the Hawkins map of consciousness. Courage is 200. That's where integrity comes into play. 500 is love. In the 600-700 range, you start to get into the enlightened realms. And when you get to 1,000 of 1,000, that's the largest amount of energy that a human body can hold. And those are the levels that some of the masters have achieved, like Jesus Christ and Buddha. So that gives you a sense of what the scale is. And when you have a society like North America that's governed by law for the most part, and is a reasonable, just place, then that is in the 400s. So the 400s are reason. So you'll find accounting and law and professions that have standards you have to adhere to on a consistent basis, or you lose your ability to practice in that profession. Those professions are generally in the 400s.
Great.
Did that answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
Thank you.
For a week.
Yeah, I think it's just important for people to have a brief knowledge of that when you're kind of talking about how you are measuring consciousness and, measuring how things are different and, the feedback that you've been getting in some of these homes. So could you guys maybe walk us through what this actually looks like? So if you were to come to my house and this is something that, I would like to have set up, or I want this focused life force energy to be, I don't know if I'm using the right words, emitted or broadcast to my address and my location. What's the process? How does it work? And, maybe what are some of the benefits, or what do you think you could maybe very closely at 100% predict that would change in my home?
Sure. Well, the way to get started is FLFE.net is our website. And right there on the front page, on the main image, is a free trial button. So when someone clicks through the free trial process, it's literally 5 to 10 minutes, and they're on the FLFE wave, is how we call it. They're sort of their property becomes entangled with the FLFE machine, and the first thing that happens is a clearing of the history of negative energy on the property. So it's like if you paint a room with a fresh coat of paint, you really want to clean the dirt off the walls and out of the corners. And we discovered that clearing the property of negative history really helps the process of raising the consciousness of the location. So the land itself, and also the building and the building materials, like concrete block or drywall, holds that energy and holds that memory. So that's the first part of the programs. It goes through and clears that out. So often people can feel that, especially sensitive people. They'll feel sort of things moving or leaving the property. Then the energy flows in, the higher vibrating energy, and it creates such a deep well or deep reservoir of energy on the property that people generally feel much more personal energy, just more energy to get things done. They feel just happier, kind of uplifted. And we think of it like a trampoline, or that's how I experience it, where, you can drop down low and get mad about something, but it just seems to bounce you back up faster because you're just in this higher vibrating environment. Then the programs come in that are more enhancing. We have programs for focus and concentration, sort of creative endeavors as well, sleep. I just had a conversation with two mothers independently recently, and both of them were just so effusive about their relationships with their kids. In one case, a teenager that had really gotten much more positive and open and loving since they started So that's something that can be expected too. It's a loving environment. It just feels loving, and so people are more loving to each other. In a business environment, and I've had this on my own business, and we have a number of customers with businesses, there seems to be a greater cooperation. People just don't get caught up in the petty, complaints and issues with each other, and there seems to be a better focus and concentration on getting the work done, and teamwork and cooperation. So it's really interesting.
Well, and some of the information that you guys gave us, and just reading a little bit about this, and you made a good point in your material about how many people will travel to places around the world, to pilgrimage that have higher frequencies or are known to be very spiritual places. And with what it is that you're creating, you're trying to create that type of feeling in somebody's own home.
Yeah, these places around the world are very high consciousness. And if you read Dr. Hawkins' work, like Power versus Force and some of his other books, he measures the level of consciousness of various sacred places around the planet. And what we've discovered is that a high consciousness environment like FLFE creates, but which can be created in lots of different ways, just by prayer and perhaps doing a grid or feng shui in a house, you can raise the consciousness of the home. But in that high consciousness environment, it creates this reservoir of energy, and the body starts to pull from that. And it, like I said, it creates that feeling of well-being and energy. But it also, what we're finding is it gives the body energy for healing and for repair of old things that may not have been worked on because the energy wasn't available. And so we encourage people to drink much more water, because these metabolic healing processes require more water, and we find that to be true.
So let me ask some questions maybe that some of our listeners are having. So you gave a good example about how people naturally can kind of create a higher consciousness field in their home, either by prayer, a grid, feng shui, maybe crystals, just having positive energy, having house clearing, saging. So what's the difference between somebody doing that and the FLFE?
Well, maybe I'll address that one, Jeff. I've done a lot of research on not only high consciousness fields, but homes.
Okay.
And so the average home in North America is about 420 on the Hawkins map of consciousness. And the map of consciousness, by the way, is we use muscle testing or kinesiology to measure. So the average home in North America that's been feng shui goes to 460. So that's an extraordinary difference, because that's 40 points. So that's 10 to the 40th power more energy available in a home. And that's a well-established science, especially in the East. They're much more aware of subtle energies in particularly China and Japan. So with the, so if you have your house feng shui, it will have more energy. It will feel better. It will be more relaxing, more enjoyable. If you clean your house regularly, that will help. My experience with saging or smudging is it does help for a period of time. And with focused life force energy, the average home goes to 555 out of 1,000 in 5 minutes. 99.8% of the properties will go to that level within 5 minutes. So it's an extraordinarily more powerful environment than even the average feng shui at home. That's the difference. And it's 24/7, 365. It's always there. Of course, feng shui is too. Once you've set it up properly, it just maintains that level. But the focused life force energy is another dimension, really. It's just another level.
Now, if you're, if a house goes from that lower level all the way up to a higher level within 5 minutes, it almost feels like people in that home would feel like they're getting a shock or something. I mean, what's the initial feeling of people when they experience this?
Yeah, well, different people experience it in different ways. We do have a control panel when you sign in to the website for your free trial that you can use to turn it on and turn it off. So you can experience it going down and going up. It's not a shock. It's generally an uplifting, enjoyable experience. In fact, Jeff has done some FLFE parties, and he can explain what happened in the parties. And people tend to want to be in the space and not to have it turned off. So I can understand the perception that it might be almost shocking, but it's really just like walking up to an old friend and giving them a hug.
Okay. And my next question would be, have you tried anything with the placebo effect? Like, how do we know that it's people not just, like, obviously there is something that's happening here, but, sometimes if people are thinking, well, I have this that's being, transmitted into my house and I'm supposed to be feeling this way, did you do any trials with a placebo? And just the power of the mind could maybe even elevate the levels.
Well, many of our customers will put it on and not tell their families, just to see what happens. And we had one the other day, and we did some of that same work when we did our beta testing. And the woman had put it on, and her husband came home, and first thing he said is, "Wow, it feels good to be home." And there seems to be an effect on everyone that the other person can observe. And so they're not looking at themselves and saying, well, gee, I feel better. They're really watching the behavior, the way people interact with them. And, you could say maybe there's some placebo that would affect that way as well. But we really do seem to see people that have no awareness that this FLFE wave is on the property acting differently, feeling much better.
Yeah, would you like to go into that a little bit more about some of the benefits of being in a high consciousness field?
Sure. Well, number one is that the body just benefits physically from the added energy and begins to do healing. And as we said, you need more water in order to support the metabolic processes. So just that is part of it. People feel better physically over time. We don't have any medical claims there that we're going to make, but that's one. The other is just the feeling of calm and being able to quiet the mind. And people have found that very helpful for meditation. And when we did the FLFE party, we had a number of people in a room, and we turned it on and off while we were meditating. And people could really experience what it was like to meditate in the FLFE wave or space. And the quieting mind seems to really help focus and concentration, and also creative endeavors like music. One of our clients is a musician and creates piano music, and the FLFE environment has created this zone where it's just easier to be in the creative process. And that's helpful in business too. What else? As I said, relationships seem to be in a more loving zone, and there's just a faster recovery from down moments in a business. Since we're clearing this negative history on an ongoing basis, businesses that have a lot of people coming and going just feel fresher and cleaner and more energized. Anything else to think of, Clayton?
Yeah, sleep is a big one for some people. Some people have told us that they had the best night's sleep they've had in years, or as long as they can remember. That's another one. Just the generally ability to relax. And I think Jeff mentioned relationships. There's an enhanced ability to communicate with other people, and a more heart-centered approach to living.
Great. Now, so this is now a business that you guys are doing, is that right?
Yes. After we did, it's a year's worth of service work, we really realized that commercializing it and making it available to people to choose themselves to raise consciousness of their area was a better way to spread consciousness and raise the level. Because we feel strongly that, each person and each property that rises in consciousness affects the whole. And what better way than to use, a high consciousness business to get it out there. The other effect is that people rise in consciousness when they're in the field, when they're in a high consciousness environment, much faster than they would. In 90 days, the average for our customers is rising 8 points on the Hawkins map. And previous to starting FLFE, the 8 months previous to that, the average was less than 1%, or less than 1 point.
Wow.
So it's quite a difference.
Now, do you guys have you been contacted by any researchers or anyone that says, let's do this and let's see if we could get, 4 houses on the same block that's in maybe a high crime area or something of that sort to see if there's a decrease in crime in the area where these houses have this, or improved health, less doctor visits? Is anyone approaching you guys to do more scientific studies on this?
We don't have any researchers joining us right now. We have had some real estate agents, really interested in trying the effect of raising the consciousness of homes for sale. But we don't have any hard results on that one yet. But we do know other people that are working in a more scientific way with this type of energy, and we are in contact with them, and I assume we'll be doing some experiments in the future, but right now we're really just focused on giving the best customer experience that we can and servicing people. One of the ways that we want to do this and creating a high consciousness business around this technology is have people available to talk, to customers as they go through these processes. And so, we built an office and customer service people and the website and resources for customers once they're on the system. So that's really taken up most of our time.
Now, if people do want to try this, why don't you walk our listeners through how they can get their free trial, and then if they were interested in purchasing a subscription, or if there's a yearly package or something that they can buy, how does it work?
Well, the website is FLFE.net. And once you go there, there's a beautiful image. And many of the images throughout the website, we commissioned an artist to create, because they really show the way that many intuitives see the FLFE wave, the way it enters the houses, and sort of the effect that it has visually. I personally can't see it, but others appear to see it, and we have some consistency among what people see. So you'll notice that on the website. And right there on the main image, there's a free trial button. And literally within 5 minutes, you can be on the free trial. The energy can be streaming into your home. And you'll have an email that comes shortly after with login instructions for the control panel. And you can turn it on and off and play with it and see how it feels to you. It's very important for us that people try it without any kind of obligation. There's no credit card required or anything. You just try it for 15 days. And to really tell, it's a non-linear product, and it really takes people's personal experience to believe it and to really feel it and know the worth of it.
And you give an example that by using the free trial that you can target an object that maybe you carry around with you?
Well, that's a second product. The free trial is a home or business. Then you can do a normal subscription once the trial's over, and it's $30 a month for a home, and it's $50 for a business. But then we also have FLFE Mobile, and this came out of our own desire to always be in the FLFE environment, or the FLFE environment. Sometimes we call it the fluffy environment. We wanted to carry it with us. So we at first used crystals. And now that we developed a technology further where any personal object can be entangled with the FLFE wave through a photograph that's very, high resolution, good focus photograph of the object, we can now turn that into an FLFE zone. And it's a 300-foot radius high consciousness bubble around the object. It's really quite extraordinary.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now, how has this changed both of your lives? I mean, just on a personal level.
Maybe I'll speak to that one first.
Okay.
Working on this project has really kept our attention on what consists of a high consciousness field and how to increase consciousness. So just the act of talking about it all the time and measuring the different variables and meeting with Jeff every day and having conversations with people like you and our customers about consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
It's really moved us into a different kind of mind space where we're always looking at the world through the lenses of how to create a more loving environment for people, including ourselves. So it's been a wonderful personal journey to do this with Jeff. And we've got a great team here at our head office, and it's probably the best place I've ever worked. So,
well, I would hope so.
Yeah. Well, it's, just because you have the positive energy doesn't mean you're going to make good use of it, but we've managed to find some really great people, and it just feels like a real great team here, and I look forward to having it grow and to have a more positive personal experience and do more good in the world.
Yeah, well, that's wonderful. We're really glad that our paths crossed, and hoping that we can help you guys to get the word out. I mean, we're trying to raise the consciousness level through our films and through our podcasts, and anyone else that's trying to do that here in the world to help humanity is A-OK in our book. So we just want to thank you guys so much for being on our podcast, and we wish you guys a lot of luck. We hope people check you guys out.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for your time and appreciate your help.
Absolutely. Take care. If you'd like more information about our films or to purchase our DVDs, you can head on over to our website at thepastseries.com. They're also available to purchase on amazon.com.
Our films are also streaming online at vimeo.com, gaiamtv.com, and iTunes.
If you have a show suggestion or would like us to interview someone specifically, please feel free to shoot us an email at info@thepastseries.com or send us a tweet at thepastseries.
Please rate and review us in iTunes and subscribe.
We hope you enjoyed the show.